Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel, Own Your Own Freedom. Today, we're going to get into something that I would call the nitty gritty. This is something that's really been bothering me in this narcissistic abuse survivor community on YouTube. And I just want to make a really strong distinction between empaths and codependents. For the first and the last time, empaths are not codependents. Please like and subscribe to my channel. Hit the bell also for notifications because I hope to make videos at least once a week and touch on really maybe important but also different aspects of similar issues that other people are coming out with in this community about narcissism. I think it's incredibly important that we tackle this thing from all different sides. So go ahead and subscribe and let's get into it. I am absolutely beyond frustrated with the terminology that we use in this community. If you noticed from my older videos, I would dedicate my videos to empaths, highly sensitive people, all types of people. But I was never conflating the two, empaths and codependents, because they are distinctly different. I know that narcissists they end up with people like this that are empathic or that are extremely codependent, but that does not make them the same thing. Just as HSPs are not always empaths. If we want to define what these two things are, empaths and codependents, an empath is someone who is sensitive to and can read the feelings and emotions and needs of others. This is not always a result of childhood neglect or abuse. We are born with a highly active and highly acute, I would say, brain response to stimuli in the environment. This is usually also because empaths are so sensitive and because we feel so many things, we're really trying to make sense of the world. So we're deeply spiritual, whether that be believing in God or whether that be some sort of general spiritualism. I highly doubt that empaths are just people who don't believe in anything, because we are so on a search for truth, on a search for understanding the world. So that's an empath. And empaths are highly effective in the world, in the community. They are not just sensitive for nothing. We have a purpose. Codependents, on the other hand, these ones are always a product of childhood abuse, of childhood neglect, of conditioning. They actually have been conditioned from a very young age to reject their self and depend on the validation of others. This is why people say that that codependents are the inverse of a narcissist, because they need the same things. They're looking for the same thing, but they have a different way of going about it. A narcissist abuses others, manipulates others, triangulates them, controls them in order to get supply to make themselves feel good. A codependent will do everything for people, be absolutely dependent upon that feedback, that supply in the same way, but it's never in a way of abuse. It's always in a way of controlling what's around them, because they get their identity out of validation, out of caring and taking care of and being a part of other people's lives. Otherwise, they don't feel fulfilled. Codependents exist out of a state of lack of validation, lack of understanding, lack of care and thorough, I forget the word, but there's a lack there. There's a need, a desperate emptiness for them. For empaths exist because of a presence of something. So you have the lack and then you have the presence of something. Empaths have a presence of strong, acute response to stimuli in the environment, in the world. That's why I would consider them very similar to HSPs, and even HSPs are finding themselves to be identified in the 16 personalities as an INFJ or INTJ, or in that sort of sphere. I'm not going to get into that because I don't know very much, but we find ourselves in that area too, because we have a purpose in the world. Empaths connect spiritually and intellectually to people because their inner being lights up. They find their identity in connection. They understand themselves through connecting with others, connecting with the world. They find truth through connection. Actually, I find myself to be an INFJ, and I find that I make connections and I gain I gain data. I receive a lot of data from connecting with people. And so the more data I get, the more I make sense of the world, the more my core values are validated. It has nothing to do with being an empty person. This has everything to do with making sense of the world, and whether it be my past or whether it be my future. Codependents connect emotionally because there's deep emptiness and longing in them. They need to be validated. They need to identify themselves by serving others. And this comes from them being victims of abuse. This is why they find themselves in these toxic relationships, because they tie themselves to people that they can constantly give and more and more, and give and feed and nourish and cherish and respect and validate. And they don't get anything back, but all they get is the validation of their identity. I mean something because I'm giving everything to this person. Also, I just want to make another distinction that's very important, because I see some videos that have been coming out recently about the types of people who attract narcissists. And I just want to make a distinction here. Being a positive and joyful and smiling and compassionate and honest and giving and selfless person, and whatever other positive traits you can list here, being this type of person does not automatically make an empath or a codependent. And it doesn't automatically make this type of person a prey for a narcissist, because it's not about what you are outwardly. It's about inwardly knowing who you are, and knowing that you have a purpose, knowing that you're worth having a wonderful mutual relationship with someone. It has nothing to do with how happy and smiling and giving you are, okay? Because there are some giving people out here that aren't empathic, okay? Anyway, this only lends itself to be true if these outward manifestations are used as tools to get love, validation, and identity. Then that becomes codependent. For example, I just want to make a distinction because I have a sister who we were raised in the same house, and under the same parents, under the same narcissistic father, and this is what came about. I am empathic because I'm empathic because I believe there's a great lack of empathy in the world. I was raised in a family that didn't really care about anything but everybody cared about themselves. Everyone, made sure their own needs were met, and nobody cared for the other. Nobody respected the other person. No one, cherished the other person. It was all about me, self. And that created an environment of, because my needs weren't met, I chose that not only should I meet my needs in my own way by disconnecting from my family, going no contact, but meeting the needs of other people in a with boundaries, though, not just giving, because I do expect for my needs to be met. It doesn't take that long for me to realize that, because I'm relatively healthy. But if I were codependent, like my sister, because on the flip side, she is a codependent because she was never, also same with I did, but she was never told how much value she possesses outside of, being in a relationship. She, as opposed to me, she doesn't fight for others or feel righteous anger at injustice. She fights to get her needs met. She fights for her boyfriend. She fights for people to love her. And empaths don't necessarily fight for people to love them. We fight for other people to feel loved, Empaths bear a strength to fight against the darkness in the world that caused us to suffer. So it's a combination of lack of love and lack of validation, but that produces two different outcomes. In a narcissistic or a toxic household where there's neglect and abuse, that can produce two different outcomes. We don't have to always become a codependent. narcs find both codependents and empaths because outwardly we might appear very similar, kind, giving, selfless, but narcs get dumped by empaths. Empaths wake up because they're constantly growing and constantly searching for truth and for self-improvement and for growing and for just to be a better person, to be better to people around them. And they look, and we wake up and we're like, well, this person isn't changing at all. This person doesn't want to change. This person is like lives in a cesspool of their own self-pity. They're not going anywhere. And empaths, like we all should do if we aren't already, we need to remove the things that are not growing or are not permitting us to grow. And so they get dumped because we're the ones that are searching for oneness and harmony, and God, and to be on a higher, vibrational playing field, and narcissists are not. So the relationship diverges in that way. We eventually realize that the narc refuses to grow. They refuse to change behavior. They refuse to work hard, and they have the complete inability to self-reflect. So if you like this content, leave a comment down below. But I just wanted to make this distinction between empaths and codependents because it makes it seem like we're just going to be doomed to, receive narcissistic abuse. And that is not the case. Empaths are not always victims of abuse. And I hate this whole victim mentality that we all seem to, not all of us, but some of us seem to promote in this community. We're survivors. We're not victims. Yes, something happened to us, but let's move on. Let's grow. Let's get the information out there and never fall subject to these types of people again. Thanks for watching, and I will see you on the next video.